Hi guys, welcome back to Just Talking, where I talk at you and you sometimes listen. So today we're ranking all of the courses at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, which is a theme park located along the northwest coast of England, and I'll be doing all of the roller coasters apart from two, which is Steeplechase and Blue Flyer, because they're a bit vague on what you can talk about and there isn't really any sort of merchandise selection or sort of correlation with that. But if you did like this video, make sure to leave your opinions in the comments, and overall just make sure to like, comment and subscribe. And let's get into my number one position, which is of course Icon. I absolutely adore this coaster and it's my favourite in the UK, which is probably quite a popular opinion. I just adore it so much. And it has a great and unique and versatile layout that provides the same thrills each time. Every time you go through all of the inversions and all the twists and the bends, you always feel like you're falling out your seat. You get the same G-force and you always get a different experience based on where you sat, which I really enjoy, and the train design intensifies that, and I really like how it's laid out and how it provides that thrill. There's never a dull experience on Icon in my opinion. It's of course the UK's first multi-launch coaster, so it is an achievement in itself, and it includes a 0G roll before the second of its two launches, and a junior Immelman loop. And I really like the Immelman loop, because it does make you feel like you're actually falling back out of your seat, and it's really intense, it's got really nice air time and pull to it, and I don't think that too many coasters offer that time and time again, and after a while you'll start to build up an immunity and it'll just be like you're going round in a car or something, but it's just got that added intensity. But with Icon, despite me going on it upwards of 10-20 times, I still experience the same G-force and the same intensity every single time, and I haven't built up an immunity to it, at least not yet. And they've managed the small space very well, because of course I have to wind it through a series of different attractions, and they do that very thoughtfully, including the interactions underneath Steeplechase. They've removed parts of the lift hill for Big One, so it can wind through there, and it does give a really nice view around the park, and not to mention when you're outside, sat in Burger King or on Big One, or on Steeplechase even, it's really nice to see it going round, and especially the views from the Pleasure Beach Express, they're really magical to be able to go sit on that relaxing train ride but be able to see this absolute beast of architecture just ripping through the park. There's also a beautiful merchandise range which has a lot of different items in it now. They're introducing more homeware things with a new chopping board that they've released, and there's a lot of clothing, stationery, sort of accessories. There is some like snow globes, which I suppose you could consider like furniture decorations or something like that, and it does normally feature the cherry blossom logo or the emboss logo, and sometimes you'll see the snake dagger logo as well, and all of the merchandise is really high quality. I've found that they put a lot of effort into prioritising this merchandise. It's a really big part of the park at this point, and they like to uphold their standards of really good merchandise, and they've definitely done that with Icon. And also the ride has a really quick throughput due to the design of the station and the on-track capacity. At any given time you could have up to 3 trains on the actual circuit. Of course that will be 1 in the break run before the station, or 2 actually going through the ride, and 1 in the station at all times. And I really do like how they've managed the throughput. There's actually a sort of like cubbyhole lockers sort of area where it has little flaps that switch up between rides, so you can go and get your cap or your bag from wherever you left it, and then the next ride will have its own exclusive thing, so if someone has a similar piece of merchandise or clothing to you, there's no chance of it getting mixed up between trains, so that's really great. And they also tell you to unbuckle the new seat belt feature before you actually get into the station, just to make sure that everyone gets out nice and quick. So for number 2, of course, that is the Big One. So it's an enjoyable coaster that can be admired for its views, of course, from its 213-foot tall lift hill, which is 235 feet above sea level, but I don't really consider that a true measurement. Its structure, it's really towering. It's got the nice vibrant colours on it that aren't too bright, but they're nice and noticeable, and it's got a simple but bird-like layout. And I say it's bird-like because as you twist through the bends and the turns and the rather straight things, it feels like you're gliding, and it's really nice to have that experience, because if it was a more intense layout, you wouldn't get to appreciate all the views from, down the front and of the rest of the park if it did that. But I really do like how they've managed the speed, but utilizing the surrounding areas and the views. It doesn't have as good of a merchandise selection as Icon. I'm not a big fan of the big one merchandise, but it's each their own, and there is, of course, the retro car big one t-shirt with the rainbow on it, as you can see on the right hand side. I do particularly like that one, but the rest of the merchandise for me doesn't hit the spot. But the photo opportunity by the tunnel going next to the Pleasure Beach Express, that's always worth checking out. You can sometimes find some pretty funny pictures of yourself, and also with the speed going through it that bit, you can always manage a nice face to pull, so then you can have a memorable photo op. So it's also great for riding in the dark. As you can see the picture on the right, that is a picture of the big one in the dark. And you can get views from all seasons down on the front. It is particularly nice to be able to see with the illuminations on. I was there for an early test of the illuminations, and that was quite nice as well to see them just from ground level. But of course, it's always better to see it from 213 feet in the sky, seeing those illuminations. It's always very nice. So there's a great on-ride atmosphere and soundtrack by, I believe, the Notable Stranger, who also did the Icon soundtrack, and a decent throughput even during peak days. So for number 3, you have Avalanche. This is a well-rounded family bobsled that offers fast-paced intensity, but it's also perfect for younger kids as well. Maybe not like young kids, but 7 and up when they can hit the height restriction. This is definitely a good one. So it has a twisting layout which gives consistent thrills and has a pretty forceful, G-force on it, and the nice twists and turns mean that you always get the speed. It's got a great alpine theme with the shop, the station and the music, which brings a sense of nostalgia. Of course, the Swiss Bears playing out in the front, that's always nice to listen to, and the shop is really well themed and it has a wide variety of sweets in it. And it has nice merchandise for winter in particular, but it is quite limited, and there should be more based on its popularity. Of course, on the right you can actually see some of the Avalanche merchandise. All of the clothing items are actually really nicely knitted. They're really soft and they are quite nice and warm, but they're not too warm that you can't wear it really inside. And it does, in all honesty, have a pretty terrible throughput. Normally, like at the start of the day, if you're in the summer or in a peak day, it will get to 2 hours within the first hour or two. And it's only able to run 2 trains at a time, and each of those have small capacity. So of course it is one that you might have to miss out on your trip. The last time I went, I didn't go on it because the queues were ridiculous. But of course, if you are doing late night riding, you'll probably be able to get a ride in, or you might just want to queue for it. So for number 4, you of course have Grand National. I absolutely love wooden roller coasters. It was my introduction to theme parks in the first place, so I of course have a soft spot for them. But of course, you're probably thinking, what on earth are you talking about? This is the most rough coaster I've ever been on. It's horrible, it's disgusting, get rid of it. I actually really like it, despite it being rough sometimes, and it's really based on where you're at in the train, but there are actually plans to retrack it similar to Big Dipper, which I'll talk about in a minute. I actually really do like it. I think if the retracked it and made it a little smoother, it'd be really nice, because it is meant to have airtime sections, but some of the restraints and some of the track means it is pretty tough and rough when going over the hills, but I really think it has some nice airtime that you can appreciate when you think about it. The layout is nice, it's intense, it's spontaneous. The thing is you can't actually see it from the station. It's just a hill that just ascends into absolutely nowhere, and you don't know what's behind, obviously the show building where it's got all the costumes for things like hot ice and, behind the carousel, so there's really nothing that you can see there. So of course it's got a nice layout and it's got all the hills and dips, and you don't really expect some of them, and it's really nice. It's a great atmosphere on ride, and you get to go up against other competitive Brits. That's always fun to have a nice laugh with the people in your train or in the other train. There's always some nice chit chat going on, and it's always nice and fun to boo on the loser or cheer on the winner if you are that sort of person. So it's always fun to experience a Mobius loop coaster due to their rarity. So if you don't know what a Mobius loop coaster is, basically it's one continuous track, but it stops at 2 stations, which gives it the illusion of switching tracks when it actually hasn't whatsoever. It's just partway through its layout. So technically it's only one coaster, but some people count it as 2. just because you have to go on 2 rides of it to be able to do the full circuit. And it does also have a limited merchandise offering. There is a polo shirt, there's a key ring, there's like a lanyard, a medallion, and then of course the mug, which you can see on the right. And this is similar to all of the other wooden roller coasters, really, apart from Nickelodeon Streak and Blue Flyer, because they don't have any merchandise at all, because really those 2 coasters are basically fully owned by Nickelodeon at the minute, so they can't really make very much merchandise based off of it. But I really do quite like the One Roller Coaster mugs because, they offer a nice white Art Deco style of, the stations for the wooden coasters, and they can hold a decent amount of drink, and they can hold hot and cold beverages too. So then we move on to Big Dipper, and of course, this is purely because I have a soft spot for it, and also you'll see why when I talk about the next few ones. It's probably just because I go on this more than the rest of them on this list, so this might be quite an unpopular opinion for some. So this is a Pleasure Beach classic with a promising future at the park as well. This is one of the founding rides at the park as well. I did a history video on the wooden roller coaster if you'd like to check that out. And currently it's being retracked in the off seasons, and it is making an impact to the experience. When I went the year before they started retracking, it was pretty bad. I got a pretty rough headache after going on it, but now after they've done some of the retrack work, it's actually pretty nice, and when you get the airtime, and it's really great, and I really hope they continue that. And the throughput is poor. It can only hold 1 or 2 trains, and 1 train needs to be in the station at a time, and sometimes it does break down, but that's pretty rare, but the throughput is pretty bad, and that's only really because it can fit those 2 trains on the track safely. I suppose you can't complain when it's a safety issue really, but sometimes even just getting people on and off the ride is a pain, but I can't really blame people for, not being able to scan the re-ticket and things like that. So it does have a good layout with plenty of airtime, and that is of course helped by the loose restraints. I thought I was going to die when I last went on Big Dipper because the restraints are pretty loose, so you actually do go out of your seat. Of course, if you do have a child that's quite slim and quite small, you might want to hold on to them going over the hills because you might have a child who has turned into an aeroplane instead of being a human. So of course, there is maybe a safety issue in the future with those restraints, but I really enjoy them for the minute. They are really great. They make the ride very intense, very fun, and I love a good bit of airtime on a Woody, and especially after the retrack, it's smooth airtime, not painful airtime, which you sometimes get on Grand National. And there is more limited merchandise in Grand National, because of course the Grand National roller coaster has a polo shirt. This doesn't. It has everything the exact same, but with the Big Dipper branding on it. But it obviously doesn't have that polo shirt, even though I haven't seen it at the Pleasure Beach yet. So I'm not too sure if that's an online only. But I don't really like the coloration of the Big Dipper logo with the black, the red and the white. I'm not a big fan of it. I'd rather get some of the Grand National merchandise. But of course the cup is the same with holding hot and cold beverages. So next up we have Revolution, and this is a great thrilling shuttle roller coaster by Arrow Development. They've been at the park multiple times before, they're no stranger to being here. They made the Gold Mine Dark Ride, which is a predecessor to Wallace and Gromit, and they made the big one, and of course Revolution. So it's got a decent throughput with really great views of the park. Even though it's not the tallest roller coaster there, it's got some beautiful views, and the layering of the park really does show, and the intertwining of the rides, you can see it perfectly from up at the top of the station. I really do like it from there, but there isn't any themed music to the ride, not at least that I've heard of, and so you will just have to try and listen into some of the music around Burger King, and maybe take a listen to the Big One soundtrack as you queue in. So apart from the views, the queue line hasn't really got anything else. So there are 2 intense inversions, which of course is a loop but repeated another time. But you can bang your head a bit and give you a headache if you go on it after eating or later on, or if you just don't setting it right. I'm sure there is a few guides online about how to go through slightly rough inversions online, so I suppose you can also check that out if you'd like. And there is a decent merchandise selection, though I'm not the biggest fan of it, and that's purely because, of course, it does feature the loop on it, but it does also feature the support, and I feel like that just kind of makes it ugly. I know the support's there in real life, and it's like an iconic part of the structure, but it's not my favourite part of it, in all honesty, but that's just my own personal opinion. And the mug is quite nice as well. That has a Revolution logo on it, and I do believe there's another mug with the loop and its structure on as well. So then for number 7 we have Nickelodeon Streak. It has an absolutely terrible throughput, and that isn't helped by the popularity of the area, and I can't blame it being popular because, of course, it's a Nickelodeon themed roller coaster. It has got a good layout for a family woody. That is also still worth a ride on as an adult. So definitely go check this out when you can. Of course, when it hasn't got like a 2-hour queue for it. Sometimes if you get a good day, it won't be very popular, but on most days this will get a pretty big queue, and it can, I believe, only hold 1 train on it. I've never seen it do 2. So most likely you will be waiting quite a long time for it to go around. It's about 2-3 minute circuit. And it's got great views into the park, and it does go through some of the rides in Nickelodeon Land and behind the Chinese puzzle maze near where Big One goes through. And, you know, it does contrast the rather bland queue line, which is mainly made up of metal and now has some wooden dividers. I'm not too sure if they've taken that out since I last went, back in like August. So, you know, it does have a pretty bland queue line, and to wait in that for like 2 hours isn't the most fun thing. And it can get quite hot in the underground section. But, you know, it is a really nice, enjoyable family coaster. But it's really nice to be able to get those aerial views of Dora's World Voyage and, you know, going around the Chinese puzzle maze and things like that. That's a really nice element, in my opinion. And of course, as I said, there is no merchandise for this ride, and that's really that. I don't think it necessarily needs any merchandise either, because, of course, with it being part of, you know, an IP and a brand deal agreement between Nickelodeon and the park, I don't think it really needs any merchandise unless they explicitly say so. And of course, that brand deal agreement could end, and then there'd be a whole messy situation with that. And then finally, for number 8, we have INfusion. People are probably going to say, oh, I quite enjoy this, or it maybe should have placed a little higher on the list. But in my opinion, no. It's got a good throughput, in all honesty, and it's got an exciting layout on paper. Really great, enticing layout that you'd think, oh, I want to go on that. You know, as you can see from its compact area, it's got a really nice way of putting itself into a nice area with, you know, I believe the Cobra roll and, you know, all the inversions in it. It's a really nice area with the Heartline roll. It's just a really great layout on paper. It's got an entertaining queue line as well, not to mention, with the surrounding attractions such as Big Dipper, Pleasure Beach Express. You can see the big one, of course, an icon. And of course, it does also have the water fountains and, of course, the waterfall by the half loop. However, it is quite painful, really, at any point, but that depends on how you sit and where you sit, which shouldn't really be an element in a coaster, and that's mainly due to the fault of the restraints, really. They're a bit tough and a bit stiff, and not well fitted to your body, which is quite disappointing, although they could change that potentially. And currently there has been no announcement if the ride will be retracked. I think they shouldn't get rid of it. Of course, this ride does have a pretty big history. I did a video on it, actually, when it was Traumatizer. And, you know, I really do think it deserves a second chance. It's got a good layout, but I think they need to retrack it. I don't think they should necessarily change it to, like, a new Vekoma or anything like that, or a B&M. I just think that they should maybe retrack it to make it smoother, maybe widen out the track, or just replace the train cars. But, of course, as you can see, there is the merchandise on the side, which is rather limited, but I do quite like the new models of the trains, and they're £100 each. So I do really like these. I think that the train design is actually quite nice as it is, but I do think that they should make it a bit more comfortable. So that's really it for this video, guys. I really did enjoy this. I really love all of the coasters at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Even though people hate INfusion to bits, I do still have that soft spot for it where I think it deserves something better. I want to like it, but I just somehow can't. But of course, all of the coasters there are worth a ride, worth a try, just to say you did it. And of course, if you would like to see me do a review of Blue Flyer and Steeplechase, maybe ask me. And if you do have any opinions or agreements, disagreements you'd like to share with me, put them in the comments. And if you did enjoy this video, make sure to like, comment and subscribe. And yeah, this was Just Talking. Bye bye.